What's up, guys? Today we're going to be talking about the life of Tank Dempsey. Corporal Tank Dempsey was an American Marine who fought in the United States Marine Corps and is a playable main character in the Zombies game mode. His player indicator color in World at War and Black Ops is white, shared with JFK and Sarah Michelle Gellar. But this is kind of randomized in his appearances since and including the moon map that you can all play on Black Ops 1. An alternate version of Dempsey is introduced in Origins and reappears in Call of Duty Black Ops 3 as the main playable character in the giant Derisium track, which features the Ultimates timeline Tank Dempsey, Zutsubo Noshima, Gorod Kurovi Revelations, and in Call of Duty Black Ops 4 with Blood of the Dead and Alpha Omega. On August 31st, 1945, United States Marine Corporal Tank Dempsey was sent to lead a squad consisting of himself, John Banana Smokey, and Paxton Gunner Ridge to an asylum facility at Wittenau Sanatorium located in Berlin, Germany, ran by Group 935 to extract an American spy named Peter McCain. Arriving on September 6, 1945, and no sign of Peter, the group are confronted by a massive horde of zombies. Dempsey ends up as one of the only two survivors of the zombie outbreak at the asylum. He's then captured by the Germans and is sent to be experimented on by Group 935. On September 17th, 1945, Dempsey arrives at Group 935 Siberian facility as a replacement of one of the three main test subjects experimented on by Dr. Edward Richtofen, a Mexican man named Pablo Marinas alongside fellow test subjects, a Soviet soldier named Nikolai, and a Japanese soldier named Takio. Each are exposed to serums in element 115 causing memory loss, and in Dempsey's case, loss of intellect. As Richtofen stated, his intellect seems low, but his will is strong. Seeking to create the Agarthan device as a backup plan to reach Gartha, Richtofen creates the elemental shard using his soul as well as the soul of the three test subjects, including Dempsey, permanently binding them to the ether itself. On September 27, 1945, Dempsey, along with the rest of the test subjects, are put to sleep until further need to reawaken them. On October 14, 1945, Dempsey, along with the rest of the test subjects, are reawakened by Richtofen. With no memory of who they are or who Richtofen is, Dempsey, along with Nikolai and Takio, agree to help him. The four would become known as Ultimates. On October 21, 1945, Dempsey, along with the rest of Ultimate's crew, venture off to Group 935's Rising Sun facility in Japan to obtain Richtofen's diary. Unknown to Dempsey, along with Nikolai and Takio, the plans Richtofen detailed in his diary are to take control of the zombies and destroy the crew along with Samantha Maxis, who is the current controller of the zombies once he obtains the power from the NPD. On October 28, 1945, Ultimus then returns to Derice. Following Richtofen's orders, they plan to use the teleporter to teleport to the moon and confront Samantha. Unfortunately, the Wonderwaft DG-2 overloaded the teleporter and sent them through time, which caused Richtofen to drop his diary. Ultimus locates a lunar lander and flew to Ascension in Soviet territory, which is where Richtofen finds out his diary is located. Ultimus then arrived at the Soviet Cosmodrome on November 6, 1963, and following Richtofen's orders, freed Gersh, a scientist who worked for the Ascension group from the Casimir mechanism. After Samantha corrupted Yuri Zaboysky, another scientist of the Ascension group, and obeyed her wish by tricking Gersh into activating the Gersh device, the rift created absorbed him and allowed Samantha to travel through. Richtofen discovered his diary and learned that they need the Vril device from the Siberian facility for his plan. Maintaining his ethereal form, Gersh sends Ultimus into a rift to their next destination before beginning his travels across space and time. From Derice, Ultimus teleported through time and space and ended up in the Kino facility on October 28, 1963, another station once ran by Group 935, which was located at an abandoned theater in Germany. Unbeknownst to them, they begin to receive help at this point from Dr. Monty, a keeper, who added changes in the background across time with things such as chalk drawings of weapons on the walls, helping Group 935 come up with the idea to make the Perca-Colas, etc. The group then teleports to Group 935 Siberian facility on March 17th, 2011, where George Romero is filming a zombie movie with 4 well-known actors. Samantha, in her pursuit of Ultimus, unleashes an undead outbreak. The celebrities find the group trapped in a small room. The film stars fight the undead horde, ultimately recovering the Vril device for Richtofen. Ultimus then teleports to an exotic jungle where Richtofen once teleported to in one of his experiments, known as Shangri-La. In an effort to acquire the next artifact, Richtofen stated he required to defeat Samantha the Focusing Stone, and Ultimus soon arrived at Shangri-La on April 25, 1956. Ultimus discovered explorers Brock and Gary, who are trying to find Agartha. During an eclipse, they're unwittingly trapped in a time loop. With the help of Brock and Gary, the group assists Richtofen in acquiring the Focusing Stone. Having everything necessary to complete his plan, Richtofen teleported to the group to Hangar 18 in Area 51. On October 13, 2025, overrun by zombies, Ultimus quickly ran to the teleporter in a hangar and then teleported them to Griffin Station on the moon. Using the Vril device and the Focusing Stone, Richtofen had completed his grand scheme and swapped bodies with Samantha on the moon, giving him full control of the zombies in the ether. Dempsey, along with Nikolai and Takio, then realized Richtofen's scheme for the unlimited power and attempted to stop him by contacting Ludwig Maxis, who was present at Griffin Station on the moon. Instead of helping the trio, however, Maxis manipulated them by claiming that Richtofen's link could be destroyed by launching 3 missiles to sever the link from Agartha and the moon. The trio went forward with the plan to fire the missiles, only for the Earth's ozone layer to become polluted and for the explosion as a result of the missiles to create more zombies and further chaos on Earth. Sometime after the destruction of Earth, Dempsey, along with the rest of Ultimus' crew, ends up traveling from the moon in 2025 and back to the Pentagon in the 1960s. As revealed and classified, the 4 were discovered by Schuster and Cornelius Purnell, who recognized Dempsey and Richtofen. The latter being brain dead due to Samantha's soul no longer inhabiting his body. Dempsey and the others are then held captive in Hangar 4 on Groomlink for potential Element 115 experiments from the U.S. government. Dempsey is alive but traumatized by the fact that Richtofen used him and the others and the destruction of the Earth as heard while in Groom Lake. Later, Dempsey is seen along with Nikolai, Takio, and Richtofen in a cell in Hangar 4. When Takio expresses confusion on how they are back on Earth, and despite blowing it up, Dempsey simply puts it as more time travel BS. Dempsey is also quite confused on how Richtofen got his body back, quite witnessing him switch stoles with Samantha moments later. The Primus crew teleport in a cell being led by Primus Nikolai after reuniting the team as one and telling the Ultimus crew that they must leave quickly. Primus Nikolai says that a war must be fought, with Dempsey saying, "War? What kind of war?" And Primus Nikolai replies by saying, "A war unlike anything you've ever seen before. The Great War." After recruiting Ultimus at the Pentagon, Primus, alongside Ultimus, teleported to Broken Arrow facility known as Camp Edward in order to retrieve the elemental shard and especially powerful piece of Element 115. However, they are refused access to the APD, which contained the shard, by the intelligence program Rushmore, who was assigned to protect the facility from intruders. However, after performing various tasks to gain Rushmore's trust, Primus was finally granted access to the APD. However, the crew would realize that the undead was not the only threat within the facility, as they were now tasked to defeating the electrical entity known as Avogadro. After defeating the Avogadro and sending it to the Hanford site in Washington, Rushmore allowed the group to take the elemental shard not long after gaining the elemental shard. Samantha, Maxis, and child version of Richtofen were teleported from the house within Agartha to Camp Edward by her father. Ludwig, who was killed by Dr. Monty in the process. Grieving the loss of her father, Samantha unleashed a pulse of energy, destroying Camp Edward in the process. Sometime after their mission to Camp Edward, Primus, Ultimus, and the rest of the children found themselves within a forest. There they decided to start a campfire and take a rest before they went to go fight the Great War. The crew celebrated with alcohol and food, with Primus Nikolai constantly begging the question of where the crew wished to go after the war ended. Ultimus Dempsey responded to Nikolai's question by stating that he was unsure what he'd do after the Great War ended, but whatever he would do, he'd be kicking something. Not long after, Dempsey along with his comrades were killed by a secret poison that was laced by Nikolai in the alcohol that they had been drinking. On November 19, 1917, Corporal Tank Dempsey of the United States Marine Corps was sent to spy on a German group 935 due to reports of a prototype armored weaponry, strange lights in the sky, and a mysterious plague, and even giant metal men. In northern France, specifically, he was assigned to grab a member of an organization as a HVT, and was given a transport in form of a Mark IV tank on April 14, 1918. Dempsey reported, despite ongoing battles, he has fared well in northern France. In a personal letter, he reveals that both the Japanese and Russian armies have also sent spies to investigate the activities of Group 935. On June 4th, 1918, Element 115 was completely awakened the undead knights from the Great War and quickly consumed the camp. Dempsey, along with the Russian spy Nikolai Belensky and the Japanese spy Takeo Masaki, unite with the German scientist Edward Richtofen on the battlefield and help free a girl named Samantha from her imprisonment in Agartha. The four uniting marks the return of Primus from the original Great War. As the group were reincarnated versions of them, Samantha, who had been freed, sent to the house, then sent Primus to their next destination. Dempsey, along with Nikolai and Takeo, upon learning of Richtofen's multi-dimensional travels, attempt to stop him for fearing that he will disrupt the established continuity of the dimensions. After several dimension jumps and failed attempts, they arrive at Ultimus timeline, which has been slightly altered due to Richtofen's past actions of traveling through the universe and killing his other selves. At Durree's facility on October 13, 1945, just moments after Ultimus Richtofen trapped Maxis and Samantha in the teleporter with Fluffy, Dempsey, Nikolai, and Takeo confront Ultimus Richtofen, telling him that there's a chain of events that must be carried out, and prompt him to awaken the Ultimus versions of themselves. As the zombie horde approached them from the outside, Richtofen ignored the three's warnings and turns on the teleporter, only to find Primus Richtofen inside. Primus Richtofen then shot by Ultimus Richtofen in the head, killing him instantly. This triggered a fracturization process, the Ultimus timeline. While the group expresses disappointment in Richtofen for tampering with history, he defends his actions, believing that what he has done will be better to secure a better future. While the others fend off the zombies, Richtofen pretends to use the summoning key to acquire the Richtofen soul, which Dempsey noticed. Eventually, the four activate a beacon in the facility, allowing Maxis from another dimension to locate them. After acquiring a giant robot from the Durree's facility, the four pursue the scattered remains of Group 935 to Griffin Castle, codenamed Eagle's Nest, on November 5th, 1945. The Germans had captured Ultimus Dempsey's cryo chamber from being experimented on by Ultimus Richtofen and planned to bring him to Griffin Station, with Primus close behind until a German soldier fires a Panzer Schreck at the giant robot, disabling it before he can retrieve Ultimus Dempsey. After arriving at the Griffin Castle, the young four watches a rocket containing the Ultimus Dempsey launches to the moon. After making radio contact with Dr. Groff, Ultimus Richtofen's second-in-command, Richtofen, masquerades as his Ultimus older self in order to fool Groff. However, Groff becomes suspicious of Richtofen's change of personality and announces him as an imposter. Using the Death Ray, the young four manage to bring the rocket containing the Ultimus back to the castle, much to Groff's anger, who activated the fail-safe so they couldn't touch the chamber. Using the Vril device obtained from the crash site, the young four awakened a Ghost Keeper and helped it return it to its physical form, before it returns the favor and brings the NPD from the moon to the castle. However, the Keeper becomes corrupted, forcing the Four to battle it, eventually defeating it. After defeating it, Graf expresses his extreme anger, vowing to destroy them and the castle itself in order to tie up these loose ends. The Four use the summoning key to launch several missiles toward the moon, destroying it. Ultimately destroying Griffin's station and killing any Group 935 scientists at the station, including Graf. After walking towards Ultimus Dempsey's cryo chamber, Richtofen activated the summoning key, forcing the others to levitate in the air. Here, Richtofen's plan is revealed to Dempsey and the rest of the group. Richtofen planned to kill the Ultimus versions of themselves to be put in the summoning key, like he supposedly did with his at his own Duri's facility. When Dempsey himself sadly put his older self down, Richtofen briefly comforts him, and after it was done, showing that he had laid his previous dislike of Dempsey off to the side. Richtofen then captured the Ultimus Dempsey soul in the key. Dempsey and the other three then traveled to a different fractured timeline to an island, arriving on a Japanese vessel heading for Division 9 facility on October 18, 1945. Before being caught and the summoning key being taken away from them, a brief fight ensues with the Japanese soldiers, with Richtofen burning one alive before he noticed the key rolling down toward the ocean. Luckily, Takeo has managed to barely catch the key by his fingertips, much to Richtofen's relief. The Four then are forced to swim to a nearby island after the ship blows up. Later, Dempsey was present when the Ultimus Takeo Masaki was cured from being a thrasher to collect his soul. After the Ultimus Takeo honorably sacrifices himself for the better future, Richtofen then preserves his soul. Initially, Dempsey suggests going after the Ultimus Nikolai, but Richtofen said a chain of events must be set in motion, realizing that he wants to save his three comrades from the eventual fate. Richtofen then takes him to the Alcatraz on July 4th, 1941, where he meets his younger self and acquires the Victus blood samples. Primus then jumps to another fractured timeline in a war-torn Stalingrad on November 6, 1945 to kill an Ultimus Nikolai Belinsky and place his soul in the summoning key. Eventually, the Four are teleported out of the sky and parachute in front of Ultimus Nikolai's mech while he's distracted with vodka and listening to Ace of Spades on the radio. Upon seeing them, the Ultimus Nikolai attempts to kill them until a dragon throws him into a building. Later, Dempsey and the others make a temporary truce with the Ultimus Nikolai in order to kill the dragon. Afterward, Dempsey and the other three demand Ultimus Nikolai to surrender, to which he refuses and betrays them. After Primus Nikolai kills his Ultimus self, Richtofen opens a portal in the sky with Max's help, and lights a beacon from a summoning key, which he releases the Ultimus Nikolai, Takeo, and Dempsey. After this, he says they will see Maxis soon. Later, the mysterious voice contacts Dempsey, Nikolai, and Takeo, informing them that Richtofen can't hear them. He congratulates the crew on their progress of fixing the fracturing universe. However, he informs them that Richtofen had been searching for years for the correct versions of them to close off dimensions, suggesting that the Ultimus timeline versions of the characters were the ones who determined the universe's disorders and fates of the incarnations of the alternate versions of the characters in the other universes, who have all been erased due to the originals being killed off. He also tells them not to trust Richtofen, and he's been in the house for ages. Finally, the voice introduces himself as Dr. Monty, claiming it's so nice to see the characters. Soon after the events of Grad Krovi, Nikolai, along with the rest of the Primus crew, finally arrive at the house. There, Richtofen reunites with Maxis. The two then destroy the MDT to ensure the house would remain safe. Letting his guard down, Richtofen leaves the summoning key on the table, unaware of who was trapped within. The voice inside calls out to Maxis and influences him due to his lack of soul, making him so easy to control. Maxis opens the summoning key, releasing the Shadow Man inside, and exploring his new surroundings, he opens a portal to Agartha and unleashes an Apothecan invasion. Monty enlists the help of Primus crew to defeat the Shadow Man and save his perfect world from destruction. With the help of Maxis and Sophia, Primus manages to kill the Shadow Man and banish the Apothecans to places unknown. As the world returns to normal, Monty becomes concerned as Primus remains in front of him. Noticing the empty blood vials, he becomes angry, claiming that they are putting his realm at risk. Initially, he decides to simply wipe them from existence, but decides instead to send them somewhere else. The four then end up in the year 1299 in northern France, just as the Great War comes to an end, causing the cycle to continue. Set before the events of Gerard Crovey, Primus enters the pocket dimension of Alcatraz to pick up the blood vials. Ending up far from the intended target, the group enters the underground lab and finds another Richtofen. He gives them the vials to the group and instructs Richtofen to reread the Chronorium. Richtofen scans the pages, exclaiming that pages have changed and that his blood is needed. He becomes enraged and throws the Chronorium before hearing a horde of zombies. The group then makes their escape, but then entering a portal, Brutus destroys it, trapping the group within the twisted version of Alcatraz. Beside a mysterious machine known as the Dark Mechanism, the Primus crew battled against Brutus, whom was being resurrected time and time again. Richtofen realized that the Chronorium meant and that the machine was intended to draw his blood, and stepped inside, sacrificing himself to free the others. With Brutus finally unable to resurrect the rest of the Primus is joined by a post-Revelations Richtofen, who informed them that the future had changed, and that Nikolai had to keep his soul to defeat Dr. Monty. The future Richtofen explained that the cycle was broken, and that he wished that he could say that he was sorry to his younger self. Taking the soul key to the future, Richtofen handed Nikolai the Chronorium, telling him that he would need to read it to defeat Monty. The remainder of the Primus members in Dimension 63, Richtofen left the old Richtofen alone and scared, as the machine continuing to drain his blood. In order to prepare for the coming battle, Primus makes a stop at Grim Lake to gain some allies. Within Hangar 4, the Ultimus crew are being held, seemingly after the events of Moon. With Richtofen also retaining his body, as Ultimus Nikolai expresses glee at being able to drink uninterrupted, Primus Nikolai emerged from a portal asking his alternate self if drowning his sorrows in vodka is the best choice. The Primus crew rallies their alternate selves and recruited them to fight the coming battle, as they each faced their alternate selves. Ultimus Dempsey asks Primus Nikolai what kind of war, to which he replies he wore unlike any other you've seen, a great war. After recruiting Ultimus at the Pentagon, Primus alongside Ultimus teleported to the Broken Arrow facility known as Camp Edward in order to retrieve the elemental shard, an especially powerful piece of the element. So pretty much after this, after the events of Alpha Omega, both Dempseys end up dead because of Nikolai, who poisoned their drinks. This is the end of Dempsey's story, for now. We have some letters that he had written while he was still alive. This was written November 19th, 1917. He says, "It seems beyond doubt that Fritz is up to no good. Air reconnaissance suggests prototype armored weaponry is being tested in northern France. Scuttlebutt reads like the ramblings of a madman. Strange lights in the sky, mysterious plague, even giant metal men. I'll be at the site within weeks to learn the truth with my own eyes. Tank Dempsey." He also states, April 14th, 1918, after far too long waiting on the sidelines, we finally got our first taste of combat. Our actions at Belleau Woods seems to have brought their spring offensive to a grinding halt. We even heard talk that Fritz has nicknamed us the Devil Dogs, following the all-around bleep kicking they took, and that's fine by me. We intercepted communication suggesting that we're not the only nation to learn of the enemy's plans. Scuttlebutt is that the Russians and Japanese are looking to grab a slice of the action. Things are going to get interesting. Tank Dempsey. This is the end of the video. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.